ESG started, as a word coined in a UNEP FI report in 2004. This study in 1972, it predicted that, the growth will hit a dead end and will start to collapse. Food will not be available. By 2050, 19% of global GDP will be at risk if we don't take care of the ESG and climate concerns. I'm always reminded, of my college days. We were learning a lot. We were always excited for the future. And interestingly, my ESG journey also started in my college in 98, 97 actually, when I read an article from Professor Stuart Hart, Beyond Greening Strategies for a Sustainable World in Harvard Business Review, and I couldn't sleep for a month because he was talking about, the challenges that will come in the future, food crisis, pollution, climate change. And then I thought, what can a college student do? These are such global crises. And it stayed at the back of my mind, for some time. But then I found a way to navigate and to pursue my passion in this. So it has been a long journey, and happy to share what I've learned. And if this can inspire some of you to also pursue this, it'll be a great job done today. So ESG and climate is a very important topic these days. ESG started, as a word coined in a UNEP FI report in 2004, and it was backed by a few investors, 6 investors initially. And they said environment, social, and corporate governance concerns are very important. All investors should pay attention to these concerns. And why did they suddenly, wake up? Because these are long-term investors, and what happens to them is, when they start to do their forecasts and calculations, they want to invest in companies that are going to give them long-term returns. These are pension funds with 20, 30, 50-year horizon. So they want to invest in companies that are going to last that long and that are going to do really good, in the world. So therefore, for them, it becomes important that companies are responsible. They were always looking at financial data, financial returns, but financial returns, as we know, they're always backward looking. Any corporate report, annual report you look at, it tells you what the company has done in the last year or the year before that, and it shows you a trend. But as there is a common, disclaimer that says past performance is not an indicator of future performance, right? Everybody remembers that. So investors could not get a high degree of confidence based on the past trend, what the future is going to be for the company. So there was always that gap. So if you have done investment research, if anybody here from financial research or investment research, you always try to forecast what the company is going to do in the future. And that forecast, they realized that it was much better. You could get a much better confidence, much better, certainty if you look at ESG indicators. Now you would ask me this question, why? Simply because ESG indicators are operational indicators that are a leading, indicator of companies' future performance. So these are all operational things. How much resources you use. You have not consumed those resources. It has not, showed on your cost side of the balance sheet of P&L. But it is telling you at what rate are you consuming resources. How much water you consume, how much land you have consumed, how much raw materials you have consumed, etc. Then on the social side, how many people you have in employees, how many customers you have. Are the customers increasing or decreasing? It's a trend, right? It's a leading trend. If you're adding more customers in your order book, that shows that the next year financials are going to be better, right? And if you're an IT company and if you're losing employees, if your attrition rate is very high, then it tells you that your ability to deliver projects will be reducing. So you get the sense, right? So all the ESG indicators were operational indicators, and investors wanted to look at them so they could get an early insight into future performance. So this is how ESG started in 2004, 20 years back. And all these, next slide, please. You can keep moving, When I do this, just keep moving. Thanks. So there was an increasing trend. 2004 it started, and has been growing now. 120 trillion worth of investors globally, which is a very big base. They are signed up to this UNPRI, which is UN-backed Principles for Responsible Investing, which means they will invest in companies that fulfill these 6 criteria. And all of these 6 criteria involve some sort of ESG research or analysis. So this was a driver why ESG started. Now, as ESG started, therefore, the investors wanted more data from the company. So there was demand for data and demand for more analysis because they wanted that research and insight. So there were more and more data agencies doing this. There were more rating agencies that were set up. Then because rating agencies could not assess if companies don't disclose the same way, so there was a need for standards and frameworks. So everybody reports in the same way. So standards started to appear. But standards remained voluntary, just like it is happening in the carbon market, right? Carbon voluntary markets were there for a long time. Now you have to make it mandatory for everybody to do it, for it to become meaningful. So then there was a need for regulation. So investors put pressure on regulators. So regulations started. And because of regulations, therefore now companies have to report. So it became mandatory. It was not just for a few companies. Now in India, 1,000 companies need to report on BRSR, which is Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report from SEBI. In Europe, there are 50,000 companies that need to report based on the European requirement, which is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. In US also, there are regulations that have come in, etc. So as a result, you can see this map. It's not meant for you to read. It's just to give you a sense that there is a lot of regulation everywhere that is pushing companies to report. So it has become mandatory, and that has put pressure on the. So this was the driver, but there is an underlying need also for ESG. There is an underlying reason, and which is that there has been a lot of growth in the last 300-400 years of industrial revolution, and that growth has led to a massive increase in footprint of resources that we are consuming. The rate at which we are consuming these resources is much faster than the earth can replenish. Air is not clean anymore. We have air pollution. Go to Delhi, you need air filters to actually just live, and even despite that, your average lifespan is reducing by 10 years. There's adequate data to support it. There is not enough clean water available. The forests we have cut down. 6 trillion trees were there when humanity was born. Now we have 3 trillion trees. We have cut down half the trees on this planet. So climate change obviously is an outcome of that. So we have been increasing our footprint as a humanity, and as a result, the earth does not have enough resources. So if we continue at this rate, if what was done in the West, in US, Europe, etc., North America, if it was done, if we do also that in India and in the global South, we will not have enough resources. So therefore, there is a need to pay attention to ESG. There is a need to pay attention to all these factors so that we are growing responsibly. So this is a key reason that we don't have enough resources. Now, so this we've already gone through it. So we are hitting the limits in terms of what the planet can support, and the result of that is that this was already predicted in the 1970s. But in our, I hope we study some of the financial models in the business school here or in the financial research world, and we do a lot of modeling. So this modeling was already done in the 1970s, that it was predicted that this will happen. But as a result of our focus on growth, we are fed this constant story in our B schools that growth rate is good. We just want growth. Everybody monitors growth, whether it is the company growth in terms of top line, bottom line, or the country growth in terms of GDP. But we rarely look at the cost of that growth. So as a result, what has happened is we have been continuing to grow, but we are hitting those limits. And as a result, this study in 1972, it predicted that the growth will hit a dead end and will start to collapse. Food will not be available. There will be enough crisis events, which all of us we see right now are happening. So they had predicted this for 2020s, and we are in 2020s and it's already happening. So we need to basically expand our horizon and start to think about these issues. It's not, linear growth is not possible. You cannot have a line that continues to grow forever, right? It has to be supported from somewhere, right? Resources have to be there. Other infrastructure has to be there. And if you have unlimited growth, a balloon can grow unlimited, but then one day it's going to burst because it goes beyond its limits. So that's what's happening to our planet and our resources. All this is a result of the industrialization that has happened in the last 300-400 years. The problem is not with that. The problem is those technologies, those business models that were made in that time, we never built them for scale. They were spontaneous things that happened. Suddenly steam engine was invented, and then you had locomotives which could transport mass materials from here to there. You had also the birth of the printing machine, the textile industry, the textile manufacturing plant, etc. So all those things, they were very good in a short scale. But when you scale them all around the world, the boiler which was used for doing steel and cement, if you use all of these technologies at scale, they are not very efficient and they create a lot of pollution. So there is no way to deal with that. We see it in our cities. The internal combustion engine was created more than 100 years ago, and it's very good when you use it in certain limits. But if everybody has a car, and in a city like Bangalore, if everybody gets on the road the same day, we hit a record early this year, right? When there was a 6-hour jam, when everybody suddenly came together on the road, nobody could move. So there is a problem with these technologies and models because nobody has thought about what it will look like if you use them at scale. So this is what we are suffering from. We are hitting the limits of the ecosystem. So much so that our our valuation systems in the business school or whatever education we are learning, whether it is in the corporate life, they're not telling us the truth, the full picture, the full story. 7.5 trillion worth of financial value is being given to us by nature free of cost every year. This is a reason, and this is on a base of 100 trillion worth of global GDP every year. 7.5% of global GDP is coming from as a subsidy from nature. If you were to remove that subsidy, many companies will become loss making. They will not be able to make a profit because they count on free resources like forests, free water, free air, free plants and trees and fruits that we get in agriculture and so on. Only we value our effort, right? We value the human effort. We don't value what nature is giving. And because there is no price to what nature is giving us, we consume it for free. And because it is free, we overconsume it. We abuse it, right? So this is what's happening. And it's never priced into the P&L. We don't see the true cost of doing business. So this is the reason because of that. That's why now there is pressure to put a price on carbon. Some countries have put, others are still fighting about it. Because the moment you put a price, everybody starts to value it. When resources are free, people abuse. But when you put a price, we start to consider it. Oh, I have to use it in a limit. So this is the shift. All the natural resources need to be priced. And therefore, the context needs to change. The way the business world is working, the way the financial world is working needs to change. So in the last 300 years, the business was built on the fact that whatever resources you can capture in the business, whether it is from the nature, whether it is from society, whether it is from communities, whether it is from suppliers, just take and become rich. Business in a way is like a capital transformation engine. It just takes resources and gets fatter and fatter and fatter. And the fatter you are, the more successful you are considered. But actually, now that context is changing because there is a limit how much fat you can become, because now your success is actually hitting the ecosystem. Nature, we have so many species in the biodiversity that have been lost. We have water. Now you can't get free water, right? You can't get free water. You have to pay for it. The bottles that we are consuming is a $300 billion industry every year, $300 billion revenue on water. Water was free for us. Nature gave us free water. But we have polluted it. And because we have polluted it, to have clean water, now you have to pay. So because there are businesses who don't, take care of water and they emit chemicals or they discharge their waste, in the rivers and in the other ecosystem, that therefore you don't have clean water. Now we only have to pay. So it comes back, right? Nature works in circles. But interestingly, our economy does not work in circles. Economy works in a linear fashion because it's an old design. So we need to change the design. What value can you give back? Now we need regenerative technologies. Now we need regenerative companies and regenerative business models. What value can you create? Can you create jobs for people as a company? If you can create jobs for them, then they will give you a share of their revenue. That's the fair value you get. Okay. Can you create more clean air? If you can create, then society is willing to pay. Air filter is exactly that, right? You are creating clean air, right? What bottled water is what? They're creating clean water. Obviously, we have to look at how long can they do it and what is the fair price for that, so that everybody can afford. So this is how new context for businesses needs to be. This is how we need to think in a different way because times have changed. Because we have made it, till this point. So the new way of creating value, the old way of creating value was how fast you can capture value from others and put it into the business. The new way is how can you create value for your stakeholders? Can you create livelihood for your customers? The kind of programs that you are doing here, training programs, you're skilling them so they can get employable, get more jobs, and therefore they will pay you a part of that fee of doing that service. In the community, can you create more cohesion? Can you create more unity? Can you create more harmony in the community, right? Instead of being a divisive business that divides, based on brands. Make very heavy brands, high premium, that not everybody can afford. Everybody aspires to those brands, but they can't even touch it. You're dividing the society, right? So so and nature. Can you take care of nature? Can you? So there is a carpet company that has now created a carpet in US, which is a carbon uh, positive solution, which means it absorbs. So when you deploy that carpet on the floor, it actually absorbs carbon from the air. And even in its manufacturing, it actually absorbs the carbon. So therefore, you need solutions like this that can actually be a help to the society and nature. Everybody gets excited when you talk about ESG or climate with a lot of metrics and data and analytics. And we are in Bangalore, so everybody is very heavy on technology. A lot of technology solutions. Everybody starts to think, but most people miss the main lever here, which is what I've talked also in my book, is that people are the most important aspect of this. If we metrics, not everybody understands. If I tell you, what's your KPI on climate today, you will be like, what are you asking? But if I tell you, have you been responsible today? That's a conversation to have. It's something you can understand. So we have to have guiding principles. We have to have principles that can help us all understand what is ESG and sustainability. And those principles are here. Yeah, you were talking about responsibility earlier. Why the dabbawalas are able to deliver, because they feel responsible, right? There is no other metric. You can measure it in 20 ways, but if they don't feel responsibility, you will never be able to drive. You can give them incentives, you can increase long working hours. Many companies try to drive employee behavior in many ways, but if employees don't feel responsible, there is no way you can create performance. So therefore, ESG is more importantly about principles and these values. So responsibility is a very important principle. Why? We have to be responsible about the environment. We have to be responsible about the people that we have, the customers that we are serving, the employees that we are serving. Okay, and we have to be accountable, and we have to be truthful. There's a lot of greenwashing happening, in ESG, if you are hearing about it, because companies making very big claims, but actually they're not able to deliver those claims. When you investigate, actually there's not much happening there, and then you get a bad press, or you get a bad brand name. So people don't realize, when actually we all know intrinsically that truth always triumphs, right? It's one of the principles. Even on the Satyamev Jayate is on the Indian emblem, right? We are a culture for thousands of years. We have lived with this understanding. How do we forget it? But somehow, when we come to the business world, we think, no, business works in a different way. Life, you can use this. Life, you can do whatever you want. But the moment you get to the office and wear this nice jacket, you have to operate on a different set of principles. You are measured on how much money can you make quickly in 8 hours. That's not how it works. Truth always triumphs, whether you are in business or you are in life or you are at home or you are at office. So it is good to be truthful. Companies also need to learn to be truthful. So tomorrow you will go and get into marketing jobs or communication jobs or ad agencies, or you will be in the PR officers, etc., in a company, or a strategy officer or a CEO. Remember this, because these are the formative years. What we learn here is exactly how we are going to perform later. So pay attention to this. Truth always triumphs. If you can cheat the market for one day. You can cheat for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. One day the truth will come out. Always. And especially in these times of social media and internet, where information comes out like this and it becomes like a wildfire, right? So I will not go into all those principles. You can read more in the book, and we can have a conversation later. So from your point of view, ESG can be applied across all functions. Whether you are an IT person, systems, whether you are a finance person, you can apply it in finance. If you are an HR person, you can apply it in your HR frameworks. You can apply it in operations. You can apply it in strategy. Everywhere you can apply ESG. It's as a set of principles, which is about being responsible for your operations, being responsible for people, being responsible for your resources. So That's something I would like to leave you with. And why is it important for India? Because some people say, West has had its time to grow. Now India's time is to grow. Do not tell us how we should run our business or how we should manage our affairs, right? A lot of criticism comes also that ESG is a neo-colonialism kind of agenda from the West. Well, look at the hard data. Yes, ESG as a term is coming from the West, but the reality is that the data is all there. We cannot run away from a planetary crisis. Resources are becoming short. We are facing this dead end. So we have to respond. We can't run away from data. But yes, we need to create solutions that are relevant to India. Let's not import ESG frameworks from the West. Let's not import KPIs from the West. Let's build our own frameworks. Let's build our own KPIs so that we can solve this problem. Just like the Dabbawalas, a service needs to be delivered. Without technology, you delivered it in your own way, right? You created your own solution that works for you. In the same way, we can solve this problem. India needs to grow, but it needs to grow responsibly. Why? Because if we don't do this, we are the 7th most vulnerable country for climate change. We already saw the floods in Wayanad, in Himachal. Every time there is something or the other happening in Himachal, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir. Nature is already showing a lot of crisis events, right? They are increasing more and more. So it's already showing signs of distress, a lot of imbalance. So we need to pay attention to this. And we need to still grow, right? So we need to, but can we grow in offering ESG and climate solutions to the country and to the world? Just like we have done with ITS, right? This is Bangalore, the IT capital of the country, and the entire southern region actually, massive amount of IT growth. We got 35% market share globally for ITS sector services, right? It's knowledge work. We can do the same in ESG and climate. We can be the ESG and climate solution provider to the world. This can be a massive growth opportunity because it is estimated that 200 trillion worth of investments need to be made for the world to reach 2050 net zero. Most countries have signed up to 2050 net zero. So who can do that? It requires knowledge, right? It requires solutions. Indians are very good with knowledge work. We can do it. So all we need to do is learn, upskill, develop on this area, start to think in this way, and we can actually become a solution provider to the world. So we grow by solving this problem, not just for the country, but also for the world. So everybody wins. We win, India wins, and the world also wins. And it's actually doable. If we don't do this, the risks are very high. It has also been, anticipated that by 2050, 19% of global GDP will be at risk if we don't take care of the ESG and climate concerns. That's 1/5 of global GDP is going to be at risk. By 2030 itself, RBI has anticipated that 4.5% of India's GDP could be at risk, because when there are climate change events, the agriculture yields go for a toss. This has already happened. We see there are either droughts or floods, excessive productivity in the agri sector goes away. We don't have food to eat. We have serious crises, infrastructure challenges, right? Bridges are collapsing and things are happening. So therefore, it's important to pay attention to this. And that's why it's a massive growth opportunity. It's a massive job opportunity. We did a report at Sattva last year. We said that 35 million jobs could be created, in the next 15 years if we start to focus on this sector. And if we actually upskill our people, there could be another 100 million jobs that could be created, existing jobs that need to be upskilled on ESG and climate. So it's a massive opportunity if we want to take it on head on. Coming back to how we started the session, so what essentially is ESG? Because there are 150 indicators on E, 150 or so in S, and 150 or so in G. So about 450 to 500 data points, indicators are there. We don't need to get carried away by the complexity. You can read more details in the book. I've listed down many of them, but we can summarize them in just one word each. So environment can be summarized in just one word, which is resources. All types of resources that a company uses are there in the environment section. S is all about relationships. Because most people say S is about people. It is about people, but it's not just about people. It's about the relationships you have with those people. How strong are those relationships? with your customers and with your non-customers and with your employees and with their suppliers, with the regulators. How strong are your relationships? If you have the tendency to build strong relationships, your stakeholders are not going away anywhere. And G is all about the right conduct, how the business conducts itself. And we'll go through a couple of quick case studies to show you if any of these ingredients are not handled well, the business, even if it is growing phenomenally, will fail. We will see that in the case studies very quickly. So if you handle your resources well, it will lead directly to better profits, right? Makes sense. Because you're consuming less, you are conserving more, so direct impact on the P&L. If you are having good relationships, then it brings referrals. It brings repeat business, right, on the customer side. Employees are not going away anywhere. So you don't lose institutional capacity. And if you have right conduct as a business, as a brand, you get trust. It directly reduces your cost of customer acquisition. Go to anybody in the marketing department and their biggest headache is, oh, I have 15 to 20%, 25% cost of customer acquisition. But if you have a strong brand, you've never done anything wrong in your history of your corporate, everybody will trust you. Your cost of customer acquisition directly comes down, right? You see, it makes business sense. Most people think ESG is just wishy-washy, some agenda somewhere. But actually, it has a direct impact on the business, on the health, long-term health of the business. So now we are into case studies. This is where the rubber hits the road. So we have been introducing the concept. We've been talking a lot in detail. But now you can see actually whether it makes a difference or it doesn't make a difference in the business world. Unilever is a great example. Unilever, here we are talking about global Unilever, not the Indian one. So Unilever started on this sustainability journey in 2000. They made a 10-year plan. In the beginning, till 2010, they wanted to implement, they took some targets, they took some initiatives, they created an agenda. But then when they reviewed in 2010, they realized that half of the things were successful, remaining half were not. They had the choice to throw away the entire strategy and say it doesn't work. But they recommitted resources. They went to the board and they recommitted. They said, no, we're going to make one more effort. And they made another 10-year plan, Sustainable Living Plan, 2010 to 2020. And this time, and they took all the learnings from the first 10 years, the things especially that did not work. And this time, they nailed it. Like in your generation, they say they killed it. How did they kill it? 6.5 billion, profit, number grew to 8.5 billion in those 10 years on a baseline growth from 4 to 6. 46 to 50. So 10% growth in top line, but 30% growth in bottom line. So this is a FMCG business. They have very thin margins, biscuits, detergents, stuff like that. They work on a penny's margin, but they were able to increase profitability by 30% in that period. And they gave all the credit to sustainability initiatives, right? Not just that. Not only did they reduce cost, they also increased revenue. They launched new products. They launched sustainable living brands, new brands. FMCG companies are very attached to their old brands, right? They never give up. You go to Dove and say, tomorrow you will discontinue Dove. They will kill you. They'll say, get out of my way. They'll get furious. So these are companies that are attached to the brands. They consciously discontinued old brands and they said, we're going to create new brands. And they did it. And those new brands are growing at 70% growth rate, right? So this is what Unilever, it's a global giant, was able to do. Right? Next case study. Boeing. Everybody knows Boeing? Everybody has traveled on a plane? Okay. So do you know in the last few years they've been having this plane, incidents? Either the plane has crashed or some door has come out or, something has happened, right? Have you ever wondered what's happening? This is the case study. So there are a lot of things, right? But the core is that they were a legendary company known for their good quality for many, many years. Very few companies left in America actually that were still good at manufacturing, but they destroyed it by the time of COVID. How? The CEO was given the task. He had a package of $35 million a year linked to share price. That he was given a target that he has to hit that share price for the company. Now, in order to hit that target, he had to save a lot of cost. He had to cut costs from here and there. So how did he do that? He cut the quality department. There were 900, quality inspectors, and he shifted the inspection model from mandatory 100% checks to random sampling. Because in the aircraft, because health and safety or the safety performance of the aircraft is very important, so every part was being checked for many years. But he wanted to save some money, so he said, there was a lot of delivery pressure also from airlines, because there were a lot of backlog orders, so they were not able to deliver. So he said, we're going to do a random sampling anyways, things have been going good, so we'll just check a few parts and just send the planes out. And he fired 900 safety engineers during COVID. So as a result, you can see what happened, right? The planes started to crash. There were problems with their software as well. Many things went wrong. It was all because of dilution of focus on quality. So as a result, what happened? In the last 5 years, the stock price has become half of what it used to be. So instead of doubling it, he has ended up reducing it by half. This is what happens when you don't pay attention to the ESG concerns and go for short-term quick profits. So this is a company that has destroyed that focus. Bhopal gas tragedy. This happened in 1984. I don't think most students in this room were born by then, but you may have seen or read about this, right? It was a very tragic, but it was an avoidable tragedy, right? This is the thing about this one, that it was an avoidable health and safety incident. Again, because of the fact that there were quality issues, known quality issues that were there, which were not paid attention to. There was another tragedy that happened, and so many lives were lost. There was another tragedy that happened, the BP oil spill in 2008, and that was also avoidable. And if you investigate that case study, you will also see the health and safety budget of the suppliers who were providing health and safety services was being cut for many years in a steady way. This is what happens when you don't pay attention to quality, which is part of the ESG framework, which is on the social side. Here we have, in India recently, we have seen the Paytm, right, was growing phenomenally well, and then suddenly corporate governance issues, and suddenly the balloon started to shrink again. Explosive growth started to struggle simply because of governance concerns. So governance is another pillar of ESG, which is extremely important, about trust. If investors don't trust you, if they lose even through one incident trust on you, then you can be sure that you cannot grow as much as you grew before. Byju is another case study. Was growing very well, $22 billion market valuation some time back, and now came down to $5 billion because of several corporate governance issues. So therefore, you can see weakness in ESG if the management doesn't pay attention. If we as people who are running companies or supporting them in any way, if you're not paying attention, if you're not taking those decisions, it is going to have a direct financial impact. So if you want to read more about this, I've written a book which is just about 3 to 4 hour read. I try to make it as brief as possible because I know we don't have time these days. We are the shorts generation, right? Within 30 seconds, we need to move on to the next shot. So I couldn't write a book in 30 seconds, but 4 hours. So you can take a look at it if you like.